The Galactic Council met in silence, the air filled with heavy tension. A dozen different alien species sat around the great round table, their holograms flickering under the dim light of the chamber. The faces of the council members showed fear, real, honest fear, something they hadn't felt in centuries. High Speaker Ythil, a being made of shimmering blue mist, finally broke the silence. Charon too has fallen. 10 million gone. The Nargathi swarm did not even stop to harvest. They devour and move on. Murmurs of panic rippled through the room. The Nargathi were spreading faster than any enemy the galaxy had faced. They were not a normal species, they were a living tide. No negotiations, no surrender, only hunger. "We've thrown fleets at them," growled General Vok of the Krish Empire, his reptilian fists clenched. "We lost 3 planets this week. Even our shock troops can't slow them down. We need something more," said Councillor Marn, a soft-skinned Avathi with wide, sorrowful eyes. "We need force. Precision. Ruthlessness." Another voice chimed in, a quiet one, but clear. "Then we must bring back the humans." Every face turned toward the speaker. It was Lady Venari of the Deltari, her silver skin glowing faintly under the light. She did not blink. "No," hissed General Vok. "They are too dangerous. The ban exists for a reason." "We're losing worlds," she snapped. "If this continues, there will be no one left to fear them." High Speaker Ythil floated upward. The ban was signed by all species after the last Great War. Humanity's methods were terrifying but also effective. "Their minds think like no other," whispered Councillor Marn. "They do not fight to win. They fight to end. And that scares us." A vote was called. Out of 12, 8 voted to lift the ban. The chamber lights dimmed. A signal was sent. Earth received the call. 2 standard days later, a sleek ship landed on Varela Prime, the Council's military base. From the ramp, one man stepped forward. He wore a dark uniform. His posture was calm. His face was unreadable. "Commander Elias Voss," he said, "humanity's representative, reporting for duty." The aliens around him stared. Some had never seen a human before. Others had and remembered things they wished they could forget. Elias was polite. He bowed slightly. "I understand the gravity of the situation. We've reviewed the reports. Swarm-based hive enemies, rapid planetary takeovers, no interest in diplomacy." General Vok stepped forward, teeth bared. "You think you can stop them with one team?" Elias looked at him, expression steady. "I don't think, I plan. And when I execute that plan, enemies stop." The alien general looked away first. Inside the training hall, a dozen human soldiers moved like shadows. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled. They trained without speaking. They adjusted mid-action. They read each other's movements. Without signals, council officers watched from above. General Vok scoffed. "Where are their energy shields, their drones?" "They don't use them," replied Lady Venari. "Too slow, too predictable. They prefer adaptation. They act like machines." "No," she said quietly. "They act like predators." In the shadows of the viewing platform, Marn whispered, "I was young during the Urun conflict. My father served on the front lines. He told me what he saw the day humans arrived. They saved us, but no one who watched them fight slept the same again." Later, Elias stood before the council. "Your target is Charon 4, said Ythil. "It has 20,000 civilians trapped underground. A Nargathi hive fleet is descending. No one has lasted longer than 6 hours." Elias nodded. "We'll evacuate the civilians, neutralize the threat." "You understand this is not about holding the line?" asked Marn softly. "I do," Elias said. "This is about reminding them why they stopped fighting us 100 years ago." That night, a report leaked to the media across the galaxy. Humans unleashed against the swarm. The responses were mixed. Some cheered. Some trembled. Children asked their grandparents, "Why did we ban the humans?" And old veterans looked to the stars with haunted eyes. The warship Vindicator floated above Charon 4 like a silent guardian. Below, the planet's surface was already changing. Fields burned black, cities cracked open, and skies dark with insect wings. The Nargathi swarm had begun to dig. Inside, the human command room Commander Elias Voss studied holographic maps. His team stood around him, 12 soldiers, each quiet, focused, and ready. Their faces showed no fear, only purpose. They're nesting here. Elias pointed at a red zone. Central hive tunnel, that's the core. Civilians are here. He shifted the display. They'll be buried in 5 hours if we wait. Lieutenant Mira Chen, the youngest among them, nodded. Entry points? 3. We'll split. Fast. In fast or out. No one questioned the plan. No one suggested waiting for reinforcements. That wasn't how humans worked, not on the battlefield. In orbit, council ships remained still, watching. Inside the command bridge of the alien cruiser Sireth, General Vak paced back and forth. Fools, he growled. They send 12 humans into a world being eaten alive. They requested no support, said Lady Venari. No cover, no dropships. That's madness. No, she replied. That's confidence. A young Avathi officer stared at the screen. General, I've never seen their kind fight. Are they really that effective? General Vak sighed. Effective is the wrong word. Efficient is closer, but terrifying. That's most accurate. On the planet, the human teams dropped from orbit in silent pods. The pods hit the surface like whispers. No explosions, no fanfare. Then, the soldiers vanished into the dust. The Nargathi swarm didn't notice at first. That was a mistake. Lieutenant Chen's squad moved through the broken streets of the old city. Giant insect legs skittered across walls. Swarm drones hovered, scanning for movement. Chen whispered, 3 drones at 2 o'clock. Wait. Go. Her team moved as one, not a single shot fired. Instead, silent blades, EMP darts, and unspoken signals. Within seconds, the drones fell. They don't even see us, muttered Private Keel. They will, Chen said, and by then it'll be too late. Elias led his own squad straight into the hive tunnel. The walls pulsed with organic slime. Heat and sound vibrated through the ground. It was like entering a beast's throat. He raised a hand. Set charges. Burn the outer shell. The soldiers placed glowing devices along the walls. Not weapons, disruptors. Designed not to destroy, but confuse the Nargathi's hive-mind connection. In 10 minutes, their thoughts will be fog, Elias said. And us, asked Sergeant Holt, will be ghosts in smoke. On the Sireth, council officers watched with wide eyes. The human signals disappeared from scanners. They've gone dark, the officer said. All of them. Impossible, Vak muttered. How are we supposed to know if they're alive? Lady Venari smiled faintly. If you hear nothing for an hour, it means they're winning. Down below, the hive started to shake. Explosions thudded like heartbeats. The swarm screeched. Entire clusters turned on each other. The human disruptors had scrambled their minds. Elias moved through the chaos, silent as wind. His team didn't waste bullets. They used angles, pressure, fire, and silence. The swarm didn't understand these weren't like other enemies. They didn't run. They didn't scream. They just kept coming. And everything around them fell. Lieutenant Chen reached the civilian bunker. The metal doors were half buried in rock. Charges, she said. Her squad cleared the area. A quiet pop, and the doors slid open. Inside, pale faces. Avathis, Krish, Deltari, all weak, scared, some barely breathing. One child whispered, "Are you human?" Chen knelt and smiled. "Yes, and we're getting you out." 30 minutes later, the humans regrouped, near the old spaceport. Over 400 civilians stood behind them, blinking at the sky for the first time in days. The Nargathi regrouped too, angry, confused, now aware. A wave of drones descended from the hills. Elias looked up, checked the time, and tapped his wristcom. Package. Ready? He said. Far above, the Vindicator dropped one final pod. Not a soldier, just a device. It struck the ground behind the humans and erupted in a white dome of light. Not fire. Not plasma. Signal silence. To the Nargathi, it was like a scream with no end. Their hive mind fractured. Drones flew into walls. Burrowers collapsed. Warriors turned in circles. The humans didn't stop. They guided every civilian into transports. One by one, ship after ship rose into the sky. In orbit, the council ships watched it all happen in silence. The enemy was falling, and not a single human had fallen. When the humans returned, the chamber was waiting. Councillor Marn stood, slowly. You evacuated 432 civilians? Yes, Elias answered. You also destroyed the swarm's breeding tunnels, disabled their queen link, and collapsed their forward base. Elias simply nodded. How? General Vach finally asked. You were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Elias's eyes were calm. Because we weren't fighting to survive. We were fighting to finish. No one spoke. That night, across the galaxy, a new whisper spread. The humans are back. Children asked again, why did we ban them? And this time, the answer was clearer. Because when they fight, the war becomes something else entirely. The Nargathi swarm had never retreated before. Not once in 100 years of their endless expansion. But after the Sharan 4 incident, something changed. The swarm ships that remained in orbit didn't attack. Instead, they turned and vanished into deep space. They were afraid. No one had seen them fear anything, until now. Inside the Galactic Council's war chamber, a full meeting was called. Every seat was filled, even by those who usually sent holograms instead of coming in person. Everyone had heard. Everyone wanted to know what had truly happened. Commander Elias Voss stood before them again, wearing the same calm expression. Operation complete. No civilian casualties. Minimal damage to surrounding infrastructure. You wiped out a hive, said Councillor Jakor, his many eyes wide. With no orbital strike, no air support. We adapted, Elias said simply. Councillor Marn leaned forward. What about the Queen? Dead. No trace of her signal remains. Their hive link was broken. It will take them time to re-establish leadership. General Vach narrowed his eyes. You did in 2 hours what it would have taken us 2 months to plan. You make it look easy. Elias shook his head. It's not easy. It's necessary. A silence fell again over the room. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news spread fast. Sharan 4 was safe. The Nargathi had retreated. The humans had done. Some celebrated. Others were disturbed. A young Krish soldier watching a war broadcast whispered to his officer, Do you think the humans enjoy it? The officer stared at the video, a recording of human soldiers moving through fire, silent and cold. No, he said. That's what makes it worse. They don't fight with joy. They fight like it's their job, and they're too good at back on Earth. News channels were quiet. The people knew what it meant to send their soldiers into space again. They remembered the last time. There were no parades. No banners. Just quiet understanding. When you send humans to war, the war never comes back the same. Elias and his team rested on Varela Prime, but not for long. The next alert came 3 days later. Another swarm hive had been detected, this time on a jungle moon called Delta 9. It was a newer nest, still growing, but already large enough to become a threat to nearby colonies. The council looked at the maps. The swarm was spreading again. And so once more, the humans were called. Elias gathered his team. He looked around the briefing room and nodded slowly. Same pattern, he said. Fast entry, clean strike. No survivors on their side, no losses on ours. Lieutenant Mira Chen raised her hand. We're going again already? Elias met her gaze. Yes, this is what they asked for. Private Keel muttered. And when we're done, will they ban us again? Probably, Elias replied. No one laughed. It was a simple truth. When the Vindicator arrived at Delta 9, the moon was quiet. Too quiet. No swarm ships visible. No movement on the surface. The Council's observers thought it was a mistake. Maybe they moved on? Someone asked. But Elias knew better. He stared at the quiet jungle and said, "They're hiding." The humans landed and spread out. This time the swarm responded immediately. Ambushes, traps, a full counterattack. But the humans were ready. Where other species would panic, the humans stayed calm. They fell into formation. They used the terrain. They adapted faster than the enemy could think. In one valley, a group of swarm warriors circled a squad of humans. Instead of fighting, the humans went silent, vanished into the trees, and reappeared. Behind the swarm, it was like the jungle itself turned against them. Council soldiers watched from surveillance drones. One young Avathi officer gasped. They didn't even use a single plasma weapon. They don't need to, said Lady Venari. They use what's around them. And if there's nothing, they still win. General Vac watched quietly. This time he didn't speak. He was remembering the old war. The last time he had fought beside humans. He remembered what they looked like back then, just like now, efficient, quiet, and unstoppable. By the end of the day, the Delta 9 hive was destroyed. The nest core burned, swarm tunnels collapsed. The humans left no signs behind, only the quiet. The jungle began to heal almost immediately, and the humans returned to orbit, once again without injury. At the next council meeting, some members raised a concern. They are too powerful, one said. They scare even our own troops, said another. Should we limit their engagement? Elias stood again. We didn't ask to return to the battlefield, he said. You called us and we answered. Councillor Marn looked at him with gentle eyes. But what happens when the war ends? Elias paused. His voice was soft. Then we go back into the shadows and you will remember again why we were banned in the first place. And across the galaxy, another whisper began to grow. The humans don't fight for glory. They fight like they've done it too many times before. They fight like they never want to fight again. Commander Elias Voss sat alone in the dim war chamber aboard the Vindicator. A single data pad rested on the table before him, showing battle footage from Delta 9. He watched it in silence, his team moving through fire, through blood, through jungle. They had won again, quickly, perfectly. But Elias didn't smile. There was no victory in his eyes, only weight. The door opened softly. Lieutenant Mira Chen stepped in, her armor still dusty. Sir, she said, the council wants a report. Elias nodded slowly. Tell them we succeeded. Hive destroyed. No human casualties. Again. Chen didn't move. Her voice was quiet. Private Keel hasn't spoken since the mission ended. Elias looked up. He took down 7 swarm soldiers alone, she continued. But he just sits in the med bay now, staring at the wall. Elias sighed. We keep winning, but we keep losing small pieces of ourselves. On Varela Prime, the council was not celebrating. Instead, tension filled the chambers. Councillor Jakor slammed a tentacle onto the table. 3 missions, 3 victories, and now our soldiers are afraid of them. Our Krish troops refuse to be stationed with humans, added General Vach. They say it feels like standing next to a loaded cannon. Lady Venari remained calm. The humans have done what we could not. They have saved lives. Too well, said Marn. They're too perfect, too quiet. Even when they win, they look like they're mourning. General Vach crossed his arms. This is why we banned them before, not because they failed us, but because they were too good at war. Meanwhile, in the mess hall of the Vindicator, the human squad sat in silence. There was no laughter, no celebration, just quiet meals, tired faces, and heavy thoughts. Private Keel sat at the corner, untouched food in front of him. Lieutenant Chen approached. Hey, He looked up slowly. "We're rotating off soon," she said. "Another squad's coming to take our place for now." Keel nodded. "You ever wonder if they're scared of us?" Chen sat beside him. "The aliens?" He nodded again. "They are," she said honestly. "But not because we're monsters, because we do what no one else will." Keel whispered. "And we do it without flinching. That's what scares them." Back on Earth, quiet protests began to rise. Old war veterans, human scholars, even citizens started speaking out. "Don't send them again. We remember what happened last time. Let others fight now. Let our people heal." But the council needed results, and so they called again. This time the mission was different. Not a strike. Not an evacuation, infiltration. A full swarm queen had been located, alive, hidden deep beneath a desert world called Mirage 6. It was a central node for swarm communication. If she was eliminated, the swarm's entire network would collapse for years. But it was dangerous. No species had ever entered a queen's hive and lived. Elias reviewed the plan. The squad gathered. "This won't be like the others," he said. "They'll be expecting us now." Sergeant Holt raised an eyebrow. "A trap?" Elias nodded. "Yes, and we're walking into it." Lieutenant Chen asked, "Is it worth the risk?" Elias looked around. "If we end this now, no more colonies will burn. No more civilians will hide underground. We finish it. Or we fall trying." No one hesitated. They were ready. As the Vindicator entered Mirage 6's orbit, something strange happened. The swarm didn't attack. The skies were empty. No drones, no ships, no movement. Council observers watched in confusion. "They're waiting," said Marn. "The humans have become their priority." "They fear them now," whispered Lady Venari. "The swarm adapts, and they've learned." "We brought wolves." The humans landed far from the main hive, traveling underground through abandoned tunnels. The heat was intense. The walls pulsed with alien life. Strange sounds echoed in the dark, and then whispers. Not real voices, but something deep in the mind. The swarm had evolved. Now it was trying something new. Communication. Private Keel staggered. "Something's in my head," he said, gripping his skull. Elias looked around sharply. "They're trying to connect, don't let them in." But it was too late. Visions flickered. Not of death, but of memories. Children, families, pain. Not human pain. Nargathi. "Pain," Lieutenant Chen whispered. "They feel afraid." Sergeant Holt growled, "Don't let it fool you. They kill without mercy." Elias said nothing, but deep down he knew. Something had changed. They reached the Queen's chamber. It was massive, glowing, silent. And at the center, the Queen. Not attacking. Not hiding. Just watching. Elias stepped forward. For the first time in his life, he hesitated. She spoke, not with words but feelings. "We evolve. We learn. We do not wish to die." Elias raised his weapon, but in that moment he saw what no one else had. This was not war anymore. This was survival, for both sides. Still, the council wanted an answer. The mission was clear, and Elias made his decision. He lowered his weapon. When the team returned, they brought back no trophies, no Hive Queen's body, only silence. The council demanded answers. Elias said, "She's not a threat anymore. The swarm will break from within. We planted a virus in their link." General Vach shouted, "You let her live." "She let us leave," Elias replied. "There's a difference." Lady Venari asked. "You chose not to kill?" Elias said, "We were sent to end the war. I ended it." That night, in every corner of the galaxy, the story spread. The humans reached the Queen and didn't destroy her. Some were angry, some were confused, but many were relieved. Because for the first time, the galaxy saw the other side of humanity, not just the warrior, but the one who knew when to stop. For days after the mission to Mirage 6, The council remained silent. They had received Elias Voss's report. The Nargathi Queen was still alive. The virus implanted in the hive network was working. Swarm signals had dropped across 5 sectors. But the council wasn't celebrating. They had asked for extermination. They got mercy. And mercy, when it came from humans, was unexpected and deeply confusing. Inside the council chamber, Councillor Jakor pounded the floor with a heavy claw. They disobeyed direct orders. They stopped the war, said Lady Fenari. We don't know that, growled General Vach. What if it's a trick? What if the Queen is buying time? Councillor Marn looked at the data streaming through his tablet. All swarm activity is falling. They've stopped advancing. No new hives, no attacks, Vach snapped. But the Queen still lives. And so do our people, Venari said. That was the goal. The chamber fell quiet. Everyone turned as the doors opened. Elias Voss entered, calm as ever. You wanted an answer, he said. You got it. General Vach stood up. You had a clear order. Destroy the hive. End the Queen. Why didn't you? Elias didn't blink. Because I saw something different. For the first time, she didn't fight. She tried to speak, and we listened. That's not your choice to make, Vach roared. Elias nodded. You're right, but it was my responsibility. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the story had reached every corner. The humans met the Queen, and they spared her. People reacted with mixed feelings. Some praised Elias, some feared weakness, but many were tired of war. An old human general appeared on a global broadcast. I served in the Urun Wars, he said. I saw what we did when we were unleashed. We were never proud of it, just good at it. He looked into the camera. And if we've learned to stop before it's too late, then maybe we've grown. On Varela Prime, the Vindicator remained docked. The human squad was under review. Private Keel sat alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. I saw her eyes. He whispered to no one. They weren't cold. They were tired. Lieutenant Chen walked in. Still thinking about her? He nodded. Do you think we did the right thing? Chen didn't answer right away. Then she said, I think we gave her a chance. And I think that scares the council even more than if we had killed her. But the council wasn't done. 3 days later, a new motion was passed. Full destruction of the Miraz 6 hive. No more waiting. No more negotiations. This time, the council didn't ask the humans. They sent in a fleet, ships from 7 different species. They launched orbital missiles. They deployed plasma bombs. They dropped nerve gas. The entire surface of Miraz 6 turned to ash. The Nargathi Queen was gone. Back on the Vindicator, Elias watched the destruction from a secure feed. No emotion on his face. Just silence. Lieutenant Chen entered quietly. They did it. Elias nodded. I know. They didn't even tell us, he replied. They were afraid we'd say no. In the next council meeting, there were no cheers. The Queen was dead. The mission was complete. The war was officially over, but no one celebrated. Councillor Marn stood up. The humans gave us a way out, a peaceful one. We didn't take it, lady. Venari looked down. We chose fear instead of trust. General Vach growled. We did what had to be done. Elias stood silently at the edge of the room. He had been invited, but not asked to speak. Still, his voice broke the silence. You asked us to fight. We did. You asked us to win. We did. Then we saw a way to end it without fire, and you refused. He paused. You wanted victory. We gave you peace, and you chose war again. The room stayed quiet. Later that evening, Elias met with his team. In the hangar bay, we're being sent home, he said. No one was surprised. Sergeant Holt shrugged. Guess we're too dangerous again. Private Keel asked, will they ban us a second time? Elias looked at him. They never really unbanned us. They just forgot why they did it the first time. As the Vindicator prepared to leave, messages came pouring in from soldiers, from citizens, from alien colonies across the stars. Thank you. We remember your sacrifice. We're sorry. Some were short, some long. All carried the same truth. The humans had done the impossible, and then walked away. One message stood out. It came from a Krish commander, known for hating humans. I saw what you did. You ended the war and gave us a better choice. We didn't take it. That was our failure, not yours. The stars shined brighter as the Vindicator left council space. Elias watched them quietly. We did our part, he said softly. Lieutenant Chen nodded. Maybe now, we rest. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, one warning remained. The humans can end wars, but it's always the others who decide whether they have to. The Vindicator sailed silently through deep space, heading back toward Earth. For the first time in weeks, there were no emergency alerts, no swarm signals, and no council orders waiting. Inside the ship, it was quiet. Too quiet. Commander Elias Voss sat in his quarters, reading through the final mission logs. The screen glowed softly, showing details of the Council's attack on Mara 6. All of it was gone. Hive tunnels, swarm chambers, even the surrounding land. Ash now covered what once held life, however alien it was. He closed the file. His eyes didn't show anger, but they also didn't show peace, just tiredness. In the central deck, the rest of the squad gathered. Lieutenant Mira Chen, Private Keel, Sergeant Holt, and the others sat at the long table, eating quietly. Keel finally spoke. So that's it. We go home. Earth goes back to silence. And everyone pretends this never happened. Sergeant Holt looked up. They'll talk about it, just not openly. Not for years. Until the next time, Chen added. Until they're desperate again. Then they'll call us. Keel looked around. Will we answer? The question floated in the air. Elias entered just then. Yes, he said. We always answer. A few days later, the Vindicator was rerouted. A council message had arrived. Not an order, but a request. Return to Varela Prime. An audience is requested. Full council meeting. The squad exchanged glances. None of them expected this. Still, orders or requests from the council could not be ignored. Back on Varela Prime, the chamber was full again. But this time the mood was different. Less shouting, more thought. The human squad stood in the center. Elias stepped forward, ready to speak. But High Speaker Yathil floated upward and began first. We brought you back not to give new orders, the speaker said, but to ask one question. The hall grew silent. Yathil's misty voice echoed. What do you believe we should do next? Elias blinked. This was not expected. Counselor Marn added gently, the swarm is broken. The war is over, but peace. Real peace, it's harder to win. General Vac stood slowly. Your decision at Mara 6 caused debate, Elias. Some called it weakness. Others called it wisdom. Lady Venari stepped beside him. We ask you, now not as a weapon, but as a voice. Elias looked around. He saw fear, yes, but also hope. The same hope he saw in the eyes of rescued civilians and in his own team after every mission. He took a breath. Humanity was banned from war not because we failed, Elias began, but because we succeeded in a way that frightened even our allies. He continued. We didn't fight with rage. We fought with focus, with purpose, and sometimes that makes us seem cold. But on Mirage 6, for the first time, we saw something else in the enemy. We saw fear and the need to survive. The same thing we all carry. He looked at each council member. We had a choice, to destroy or to understand, and we tried understanding. That scared you more than war. Counselor Jakor muttered, because we don't trust them. Elias nodded. Then learn, talk, prepare. But don't always reach for fire first. Not every threat needs to be crushed. Some just need to be heard. General Vac asked, and what if we make the wrong choice again? Elias answered simply, then you'll remember who to call, silence, and then something unexpected. Applause. Not from everyone, but enough to show that something had changed. The council didn't declare humans heroes. They didn't offer medals, but they gave something more meaningful: respect and a place at the table. In the following weeks, peace began to spread across the galaxy. The swarm fell quiet. Scattered hives sent no more attacks. A few tried to communicate, clumsy messages sent through strange channels. But they were attempts. The council formed a new department, interspecies understanding, and for the first time ever, a human was appointed to lead it, Elias Voss. Back on Earth, the Vindicator landed without celebration. No flags, no parades, just families waiting at the gates. Private Keel hugged his younger sister and said nothing, just held her. Lieutenant Chen looked up at the sky, breathing air that didn't smell like war. And Elias? He walked into a quiet house in the hills, no weapons, no armor, just a garden in the back full of green things. He sat down, pulled off his boots, and let the soil touch his bare feet. Across the galaxy, the story was passed down. There's a reason humans were banned from the battlefield. It wasn't because they were too violent. It was because they were too effective, too fast, too final. But then came the second part. And there's a reason they were brought back. Not just to fight, but to remind us that war should never be the first answer, because if it is, the humans will end it.